Hey, so we have this problem and it wants us to use this f of x function and g of x function and do g composed with f of x. All right, that's part A, and then part B wants us to find the domain of that. So f of x is equal to 1 over x, and g of x is equal to the square root of x minus 4. All right, so whenever we do g composed with f, what we're doing is g of f of x. So we're taking the whole f of x function and plugging it into g. Alrighty, so when we do that, we're going to get g of 1 over x, which is the square root of 1 over x minus 4. All right, so I'm going to try and rewrite this a little bit because it'll be easier in the next part when we try to get our domain. So I'm going to multiply this 4 by x over x. X over x is just one that I'm not changing anything about the problem, but I'm getting a common denominator now. So I have square root of 1 over x minus 4x over x. So I can subtract them and I'm going to get 1 minus 4x over x. And then a property of square roots with fractions says I can do square root of this top stuff divided by square root of the bottom stuff. All right. So now I've got my g composed with f of x is equal to square root of 1 minus 4x over square root of x. So 1. All right. Now for part B, we're trying to find our domain. And if we have square roots, the stuff, I'm writing squiggle, the stuff on the inside has to be greater than or equal to 0 because we can't take the square root of a negative number. And if we have a fraction with there's x's on the inside and there's x's in the denominator here, this stuff in the denominator cannot be equal to 0 because you can't divide by 0. So in this problem, we have both of these. If we put them together, 1 over square root of stuff with x's, the stuff inside the square root has to be strictly greater than 0. It can't be equal to 0 because we can't divide by 0. Alrighty. So we kind of have to break this up into two parts. We have our numerator, 1 minus 4x, and our denominator, square root of x. The stuff inside here, this x, has to be strictly greater than 0. The stuff in here has to be greater than or equal to 0. Because it's in the numerator, it doesn't matter if it equals 0, but the denominator, it cannot be equal to 0 because you can't divide by 0. So we have x is greater than 0, and we have 1 minus 4x is greater than or equal to 0. All right. So this one's okay. I'm going to box it. This one, I'm going to add 4x to both sides. So that gets 1 is greater than or equal to 4x. I'm going to divide by 4, divide by 4. That's 1/4 is greater than or equal to x. Or I can rewrite that as x is less than or equal to 1/4. All right. So now I have two constraints for my domain. My x has to be strictly greater than 0 and strictly less than or equal to 1/4. So that tells me that my domain is from 0 to 1/4, and it includes 1/4. This would be my answer.